happy Thursday. How's it going? Welcome to Crime Dip, where I hang out every Thursday and let y'all know about some true crime cases I've stumbled across this week. My name is Crystal Sky, and man, this week's stories are just especially heart-wrenching. Stories that deal with kids it's especially tragic. I say this all the time. All murder is senseless and whatnot, but man, when it happens to kids, it's just especially tragic. And as a quick reminder before we get started, if you want more of a thorough, deep dive look into true crime cases, I do upload my other series, Crime Dive, every Tuesday at the same time as this, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And with that, let's dig into these stories. So, this first story we're going to talk about, it just happened, so there's not really a whole lot of information out just yet, but it's just infuriating. We'll get into it and then we'll discuss afterwards. So on Wednesday, January 11th, 2023, at approximately 4:43 p.m. in Bloomington, an unidentified 18-year-old student at Indiana State University was stabbed repeatedly in the head by 56-year-old Billy R. Davis. So this was as the student was waiting to exit Bloomington Transit Bus 1777. So she's just standing there waiting for the bus to come to the stop and for the doors to open when Billy, holding a folding knife, approaches the student from behind and just begins stabbing her in the head. Even moving at a certain angle to get a better position at one point in time. Now there was no prior interaction between these two women before this happened, and according to reports, quote, "A review of bus video surveillance shows that student," I said this earlier, she's unidentified, so she's referred to as different things in different articles, I'm just going to refer to her as student, "and Billy Davis were not together and had no prior confrontations or negative interactions. The video shows Davis removing and unfolding the knife immediately prior to student exiting the bus. Billy appears to turn for a better position while clutching the knife. Davis then stabs and or attempts to stab student in on top of her head approximately 7 times. Davis then folds the knife, puts it back in her pocket, and returns to her seat position on the bus. Davis doesn't appear to acknowledge student after stabbing her or have any other contact. Davis then exits the bus and was later arrested by Bloomington police officers." The student said that after the attack, she felt an immediate pain in her head, the pain was immediate and apparent. And it is unclear who exactly called 911 or the exact sequence of events that happened. Reports just said that paramedics arrived on scene, assessed the situation, and rushed her to the hospital. Meanwhile, some reports are indicating that Billy got off the bus. I don't know if at a later stop or what, but just that she exited the bus. And I believe it was a bus passenger, or at least a witness to this incident, then discreetly followed Billy while being on the phone with authorities to report her location, and that is why she was quickly arrested. The student was rushed to Bloomington Hospital, where she is recuperating. She was treated for multiple stab wounds and punctures to her head, and the only information that has been released about her thus far, other than being a student at Indiana State University, is that she lives in Carmel, which is a city north of Indianapolis. So like we said, Billy was arrested, and she was remanded to the Monroe County Jail, and she was charged with attempted murder, which is a level 1 felony, aggravated battery, which is a level 3 felony, and battery by means of a deadly weapon, a level 5 felony. And this was according to court records. She is currently being held on a $100,000 surety bond and a $1,000 cash bond. Also, alright, so you're probably wondering what the hell? What is going on? Well, according to reports, which include court documents, the reason Billy targeted this 18-year-old student was because the student happens to be Chinese. She reportedly told the police that she targeted the woman because it, quote, would be one less person to blow up our country. What an idiot, to say the least, right? And she reportedly told the police that she intended to kill the woman. Simply for existing, guys. Simply for existing. Now, local prosecutors have said Billy has not been charged with a hate crime because Indiana is one of 4 states that lack, comprehensive laws regarding hate crimes. So that is why she is charged with the charges that she has. Now, we don't know a whole lot about Billy, but, I looked up a little bit about her because she goes by several names. So I was able to scrounge up a couple of newspaper articles about her. Nothing major. So Billy Davis also goes by Billy Raynard. I believe this may be her maiden name, and I think her mother's name is Brenda Raynard. And I believe she also has an uncle named Michael S. Raynard. possibly Brenda's brother. She also goes by Billy R. Podorth. So I found a newspaper article from June of 1984, and it announced the marriage of Billy R. Raynard and Greg Podorth. The announcement also said that someone named Ava Massey was the maid of honor, and two women by the name of Katrina and Kyla Raynard were the bridesmaids. So maybe, I don't know, sisters, cousins, who knows? I found another article from June of 1986 that announced the request for a dissolution of the marriage. It was filed by Greg. And there was another article from September of that same year, and it announced the dissolution of the marriage between Greg and Billy. It also mentions a minor child whose primary custody was given to Billy, with Greg paying child support. She's also known by Billy R. Whitenbach, and I think she may have twin daughters with the same last name, who in 2011 graduated from like basic training at like an Air Force base or something like that. So the news article said that these twins were the daughters of an Ava and Greg Massey. Remember, Ava Massey was at that marriage with Greg and Billy Raynard. Yeah, it said that these were the daughters of Ava and Greg Massey and Billy Raynard. So not sure, maybe we have like an adoption situation or something going on. Not sure. And it also listed them as being the granddaughters of Brenda Raynard. So yeah, not sure. And I looked at a link that had a bunch of different listings of, you know, Billy's time behind bars. This isn't her first rodeo, and it went back decades. I also found newspaper articles. And most of what I could find had to do with, like, you know, public intoxication, being a public nuisance. There were a lot of hits for contributing to the delinquency of a minor by providing them with alcohol. There were quite a few hits for that all throughout the 80s and 90s. That was what I could find through newspaper articles. And also a lot to do with like moving violations, traffic tickets, like, you know, traffic citations, things like that. I couldn't find anything that was violent or physical. So yeah, if you happen to have like any links or information that, you know, she has a violent past, go ahead and drop them down below, because I couldn't really find anything. I just found mostly, you know, like what we would consider petty stuff, I guess. Now, I found a newspaper article from September of 2001, and it listed Billy R. Raynard and James H. Davis as applying for a marriage license. Not sure if she's still married to him since she still goes by Billy Davis, or if they divorced and she just kept the name. And that's really all we know about her. Now, Indiana State University Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Multicultural Affairs, James Wimbush, did issue a statement after this attack was made to the media. And he said, quote, "This week, Bloomington was sadly reminded anti-Asian hate is real and can have painful impacts on individuals and our community. No one should face harassment or violence due to their background, ethnicity, or heritage. Instead, the Bloomington and IU communities are stronger because of the vast diversity of identities and perspectives that make up our campus and community culture." The university's Asian Culture Center also issued a statement, which in part said, quote, "We should not be fearing for our lives on public transportation. Taking the bus should not feel dangerous." And hell yes. What do you do with people like this, dude? Like, I'm sorry. Like, I can't stand people like this. People like this, I assume you have to be like inbred or something. You're missing some sort of brain cell if you are just so infuriated and anger at the mere existence of people that are different from you. It's bizarre to me. I don't understand it. I think these people are lower than trash. And no, I don't have to put up with them. I don't have to be tolerant of their bullcrap views. Like, that's just me personally. Like, I'm so sick of people saying like, oh, you gotta, you know, tolerate all points of view. Not when it has to do with hatred. No, I don't. You hate someone simply for existing. I don't care if it's because of your religion, your personal preference. Like, I don't care. I don't care. They're not doing anything to you. They're not doing anything to anyone, just minding their business. Just stay in your lane and mind your own damn business, you know? Like, I don't know, man. Like, it's just so dumb. And then, like, yeah, that to blow up our country, what? Like, so what? This idiot can't even get like her stereotypes right? Or is that like the next fear-mongering thing now? Is that like Chinese terrorists or something? I don't know, dude. I don't keep up with it. These people, man. In this next story, dude, this one, I was tearing up as I was watching the news clips of this one. This one is just so heartbreaking. So, Jared James Dicus and Angie Diaz were a young couple who lived in a rural area northwest of Houston in a little town called Magnolia. They lived in a small house that was located behind Jared's parents' house. So, like, his parents had, like, a full house in the front. And then there was, like, this little, I don't know, like, cottage house thing in the back. And that is where Jared and Angie lived. Angie worked at the Mexican store/restaurant Chepe's, and she had worked there for 3 years. It is said this is where she met Jared. I'm unclear if Jared worked there at one point in time, or if perhaps he was a customer, and that's how they met. Now, her friends and coworkers described Angie as someone who was just, you know, those people that are just always happy, always smiling. Like, they can almost infect you with their good mood. That's how Angie was described. She was the oldest of 4 siblings and was an immigrant from Nicaragua. Oh my god, I actually said it. I was so scared I wouldn't be able to say that. Now, some reports state that she was like an undocumented immigrant from Nicaragua, but like, I don't know. I only read that in like one report. I don't know, but whatever. She's from Nicaragua, and she had come here to the U.S. in search of a better life. Her mother, Danny, had to actually flee Nicaragua herself due to a violent relationship, and when Danny did that, she was forced to leave her daughter Angie behind, and she left her behind in the custody of her aunt, I'm gonna guess her sister, who apparently would have a huge hand in raising Angie. Now, according to Danny, Angie had come to the U.S. about 4 years ago, and that is when mother and daughter were reunited. Angie was working to help pay for her aunt's cancer treatment back home. Her aunt had cancer, and she was working 2 jobs actually to send money back home to her aunt. So she worked at the Chepe's market, and she had actually just become a fitness coach in order to make some extra cash. Apparently on her social media, Angie posted all kinds of like fitness stuff, like she was really into it, and she also posted numerous photos of her and Jared looking like any other happy normal couple, man. So the couple, Angie, who was 21, and Jared, who was also 21, ended up married on October 22nd, 2022. They had a surprise ceremony in front of a justice of the peace, and it is said this move like surprised all who knew them, their friends and family. Like, they were pretty shocked by it. One of Angie's friends said, quote, "She told me they eventually wanted to have kids, but I told her to avoid getting pregnant so quickly. I told her to get to know him more and enjoy just being a couple." A neighbor who actually grew up with Jared and knew them said of the couple, quote, "Diaz was this little ray of sunshine in his life. She was optimistic. He made her happy, and she kept him in good spirits." And then on Wednesday, January 11th, 2023, at 4:18 p.m., police were called to Jared and Angie's home. Now, there's not a lot of like intricate, elaborate details available just yet, only that it was apparently Jared's family who had called authorities. There were some reports that stated they had like witnessed Jared like acting strange or something. They asked him about Angie, and he was like really weird about it, and I guess this prompted them to call authorities. In one report, apparently Jared's father was the one who called the police, and this is when they had stumbled onto Angie. Quote, "They, the parents, were addressed by the suspect, husband, and when they saw something wasn't feeling right for them, they approached the house that they were living in, and that's when they found what they found." And Let's get into what they found. In the home, authorities found Angie's body, her head missing, and according to court documents, her body was found on the floor near the bed. She was in a pool of blood, and she had multiple stab wounds to her back, and, quote, "what appeared to be the head of the victim to be in the shower." Walker County Sheriff Troy Guidry said, quote, "It was a portion of a body dismembered and a residence that was covered in blood. A gruesome scene at best." They also found a kitchen knife, which they do believe to be the murder weapon, and they found it inside the home. Guidry said, quote, "Everything happened on the property, and all parts and pieces were recovered and submitted for evidence." Now, Angie was at first believed to have been deceased since about 11 p.m. the night before she was discovered. However, more recent reports are stating that now authorities believe that she had been killed somewhere between 10:30 a.m. and 11 a.m. the day she was found. Jared and all of his family members who were at the scene were, of course, brought in for questioning, and it is said when they were questioning them, that is when Jared confessed to murdering and decapitating his wife. He was then arrested and charged with her murder, and is currently being held on a $500,000 bond, and so far, police have not released any type of motive or reasoning for why Jared could have possibly done this. So there is surveillance footage that is being reported as showing Jared possibly mere minutes to, I don't know, like a half hour after he butchered his wife. So around 11:40 a.m., surveillance cameras show Jared showing up in the parking lot of the Chepe's market. He gets out, he's wearing a t-shirt and jeans, just casually strolls into the store like it's a normal day, goes to the back, goes to the cooler, gets out a beer, and then exits the store without paying for it. Again, just nonchalantly like it's his house. And cameras show him going to his car, popping it open, taking a swig, and then getting into his car and leaving. Now, one of Angie's friends, whom she had known for 4 years, and who asked to not be identified, said Angie had confided in them that her husband was jealous. Quote, "He posted a video saying she is mine to social media, and it was weird because no one was questioning that. It was out of nowhere. Another friend who was a former coworker said that they had last seen Angie and Jared at a Christmas party just, like a month ago. And according to them, out of nowhere, Jared just takes off out of the party looking, kind of pissed off. Quote, everyone was having a good time, and he left looking really upset. This friend also stated, quote, she never said there were any problems. Maybe she was just embarrassed to admit her relationship wasn't perfect. Angie's boss at the market, Veronica Jimenez, said, quote, she was happy, very happy with her husband, but there were days when she was different. She was tired, but I wasn't sure if she was tired because of her job or because of her relationship. And several coworkers and friends said that they did notice a slight shift in her demeanor, in her attitude after she was married to Jared. So after October, she just seemed just a little more sad, little like Veronica just described, tired. And they said that they noticed this again after she had married Jared. So the Waller County judge who married Angie and Jared, Judge Trey Duya, said in a statement on Facebook, quote, during my short time with them, they were a very nice young couple. I'm deeply saddened and shocked by the news of this tragic event, and my prayers are with all of their families. Now, cops revealed on January 12th that they were aware of the couple. Quote, there have been prior calls, disturbance-wise, but nothing to this effect. To this level of violence. It is also being reported that Jared's older brother did live, I don't know if he lived with Jared and Angie in the back house or lived with his parents in the main house, just that he did live at that residence as well. A vigil for Angie was held in Oak Hollow Park, which is in Magnolia, and they held it on Saturday, January 14th. Angie's family has also set up a GoFundMe page to help pay for her funeral costs, and the GoFundMe reads, quote, a parent's worst nightmare. Angie Diaz, 21 years old, daughter, sister, niece, and a friend. Our family is shattered by the loss of such a young life. She was the light to our family and community, always with a smile and cheerful personality. The absence of her from our lives will be felt forever. I started a funeral fundraiser to help cover the cost of Angie's funeral expenses. Please consider donating if you can. Any amount will truly help. It would mean a lot if you could share Angie's funeral fundraiser with others. Thank you so much. Now, one report I read, it was dated Friday, January 13th, said that they had actually raised over $20,000 as of that report. So hopefully it's even more now. Now, in a report dated Saturday, January 14th, Angie's family has stated they are trying to get her body shipped back to Nicaragua, and this was so that her aunt, who Angie considered a second mom, could say her proper goodbyes. However, the consulate of Nicaragua, located in Houston, won't even meet with the family. They were just turned away immediately. So I don't know if maybe people just maybe need to email them and call them and ask them why they're not helping Nicaraguan citizens just to get this body transported, just so her aunt, who is suffering from cancer, can say goodbye to her niece, who I'm sure she considered a daughter, And that is all that is being reported about this story thus far. Yeah, it's breaking, and oh my god, it's heartbreaking is what it is. And dude, the photos are really creep me out. They look like such a, average couple, and yeah, I don't know. Of course, you can guess what goes through your mind, right? Friends are saying he was jealous, and then her attitude and kind of mood changed after they were married. I just don't know why people have to view their spouses, their, partners that they're supposed to love as property. I just don't get it, man. And God, just continuing on with the heartbreaking cases, this one just, God, you'd think we'd be used to children being gunned down in this country, but I'm, I guess glad to say I'm kind of glad I'm not desensitized to it. It's heart-wrenching every time. So on Saturday, January 7th, 2023, at 3:56 a.m. in Washington, D.C. on Quincy Street Northeast, an unidentified man grabbed his gun because he heard some noises outside his front home. All right, so he got his gun and decided to go outside and investigate. Quote, there was an interaction between a juvenile male and the male resident. The juvenile male was 13-year-old Karon Blake. Now, it is being reported there were two other juveniles with Karon. Now, it is said that the man with the gun thought that the kids were, carjacking, breaking into cars and stuff along the street. Apparently, there had been some issues with that recently, and no one knows exactly what happened yet, but some sort of interaction and/or exchange happened between the man with the gun and Karon, and all we know is the man with the gun ended up shooting Karon multiple times. Now, it is currently being reported that when paramedics arrived on scene, Karon's shooter was administering CPR to him, but unfortunately, after being transported to a hospital, Karon was later pronounced dead. He was described as, quote, quiet and inquisitive by his teachers, and was said to have loved fashion and football. He leaves behind a mother, 3 younger siblings, and grandparents. Now, it is being stated that it's not exactly 100% clear who called 911 and summoned authorities. Some reports are saying that it was the shooter. Other reports are saying it was a neighbor who heard the gunshots. Like I said, it was believed there were 2 other juveniles with Karon who took off probably when the gunshots went off, and they supposedly fled in a vehicle that is believed to have been stolen. Some reports are saying that it is believed that all 3 of them arrived in the stolen car, and then they took it up an alley a little bit, and then abandoned the car and took off on foot. They have not been found as of the recording of this video. Now, there are many who are demanding that the Metropolitan Police Department release the identity of Karon's shooter, who has not been identified or charged. But so far, MPD has refused to do so. They have only stated that Karon's shooter is black. Karon is a black child, and all they have stated is that Karon's shooter is black, and that he is also a district government employee in DC who does not work in the public safety sector and is not part of law enforcement. They have stated, as per usual with these kinds of cases, that the employee is now on administrative leave as they investigate. They have also stated that the weapon used to kill Karon was legally, purchased and registered and all that good stuff. I don't see what that has to do with anything, but that is what is being reported. Now, DC Mayor Muriel Bowser has made several statements. When this story first broke, she said, quote, "It's a horrible situation. We have a 13-year-old that died, and we don't have all of the facts. And the people who are responsible for gathering the facts and making charging decisions are doing it just as fast as possible." DC Police Chief Robert J. Conte III also made statements. You can guess why they wanted to put that fact out there that Karon's shooter was also black. Because, of course, what do you think when you hear of a black child being unarmed, black child, we'll get into that, being gunned down in America, right? You're going to assume, there's some sort of racial animosity there, right? And so they were trying to just kind of squash all these rumors and all these assumptions that people were making. So he made several statements as well, one of which was, quote, "There's been too much misinformation swirling around this incident. Too many people have made assumptions about this case, and it is unfair to the grieving family. Karon was black. The man who shot him is black and has a concealed carry license and a registered firearm. He is not a current or former law enforcement." And I mentioned this just a few seconds ago. It should be noted that it has been confirmed Karon was completely unarmed. No weapons were found on him, no guns. I'm going to assume they didn't find any weapons on him because you would think that's something that they would report very quickly, right? On Friday, January 13th, Ward 2 council member Brooke Pinto tweeted that her office had requested and received the body cam footage that shows the aftermath of the shooting. So there's no footage of the actual shooting, just the body cam footage of when law enforcement arrived on scene. She said they are still talking with MPD about how and when and if they could make this information public. She tweeted, quote, "My staff and I are in ongoing conversations with MPD to ensure proper procedures are followed in determining if and when additional information regarding the shooting could be made public." And that same day, Karon's grandfather announced that they were planning Karon's funeral for January 23rd, and it would be held at the Israel Baptist Church in Washington, D.C. On Saturday, January 14th, a vigil was held to celebrate Karon's life. They wore blue and black, and at the vigil, his grandmother said, quote, "I'm just grateful everybody's here to celebrate Karon, and that's my baby." Now, many are rightfully so outraged after this story, right? Because, let's assume Karon and his friends were carjacking. Does that really warrant a death sentence? And this is what angered a lot of people, and the fact that he was shot multiple times, he was shot more than once, and they're just really? It's a carjacking, and even if he was to get, arrested for that, it certainly wouldn't warrant the death sentence. So people were, criticizing the gun culture in this country, how there's just too many people who want to pretend they're an action hero, who want to be the protagonist in all of their own little movies, and they were criticizing, you have this grown man who goes out there with his gun and, confronts a bunch of kids, and it's why do you have to shoot? And that's what I'm just I don't understand how that could, you have the power here, bro. You're the adult. You have a gun. Grab your phone. Did he have his phone on him? That's what I want to know. And just say, hey, what's going on? I'm going to call the police. And if they take off running, okay, let them run off. I'm not saying that's what happened here. I'm trying to point out that, I don't see a logical explanation for, why you would gun down an unarmed 13-year-old who did not shoot at you or anything like that. There were also many criticisms about just how many black children are gunned down in this country, how black children, black people in general, are just not given the same kind of chances that white people are, which you can look up the data and the statistics, bro. Look it up. Black people are sentenced much harsher for this same exact things as white people. And the fact that Karon's shooter is also Black highlighted another topic of discussion that people were talking about, and that was like that internalized racism, right? Like that's something we don't talk about. You can have internalized misogyny, internalized racism. Like people think, just because you're a woman, you're not capable of misogyny. Just because like you're Black, you're not capable of being racist against other Black people. And they were talking about like, it's not like internalized systemic, like that's how pervasive, right? That like these issues are. And they were saying this incident just kind of like highlights what, that topic right there. Now, many people were just outraged. I watched, I think it was like a town hall, I guess you would call, where, citizens were able to voice their concerns to city council members, the police, and they were pissed. They were angry that the identity of Karon's shooter hasn't been made public yet. I don't know how to feel about that. I would love to get a European's point of view because Europe I know has different laws regarding, the identities of suspects who haven't been convicted of anything yet. And this guy hasn't even been charged. So I don't know how to feel about that, but I certainly understand people's anger. Time and time again, police, those in positions of power in our government have proven they don't have our best interests at heart. I mean, shit, the Supreme Court has ruled that police's number one duty is to protect capital and property. So I don't blame people for being angry and demanding the identity of this guy. Not saying I necessarily agree with that, releasing his identity, because he hasn't been charged with anything just yet, but I understand the anger and I understand the lack of trust there. You know what I'm saying? Especially when I read that he was a government employee, I was just like, I wonder if we will get anything at all. I wonder if maybe he won't even be charged. I mean, who knows? Mayor Bowser has said, quote, if you feel that there is a public safety issue in or around your home, call 911. That is the appropriate thing to do, to call 911. And DC council member Zachary Parker has also issued a statement that read in part, quote, no car or material possession is worth a life under any circumstances. And yeah, that's it right there. That's what gets me is there's no reason for you to who cares if they break into cars? Call 911. I don't know. We'll see what happens with this one. And our last story is one that I actually remember when it came out. And I was curious if there were any updates to it. And it looks like we have a preliminary hearing coming in February. So let's get into this. All right. So on the morning of Friday, October 7th, 2022, in Excelsior Springs, which is a suburb of Kansas City, Missouri, a woman who has only been identified as 22-year-old TJ came running up and down, pounding on neighbors' doors, begging for help. And this was at 7:47 a.m. So one of these neighbors was Lisa Johnson. Her husband had just left for work and she was in the living room, I believe getting ready to leave for work herself, and she heard faint cries for help. She walked out to her glass front door and said that she noticed TJ across the way hunched over and nearly crawling towards her, up her steps and stuff. She was crouched down so low she was almost crawling. Lisa told her oh, I'm gonna go call the police, but she begged Lisa not to. Lisa said, quote, she said, no, please don't call. If you call, he will kill both of us. She told me that he had killed both of her friends. Lisa told her, wait a minute. She went inside. I think her dog was in the yard, so she went inside to put the dog in. And by the time she came outside, she was on the phone with 911 and TJ was hiding behind a tree. Lisa told her hey, I'm on the phone with 911. And apparently TJ was just can you ask if they'll send a female officer? Lisa said that you could immediately and outwardly tell that TJ had been through some shit. She said she was extremely skinny, had visible ligature marks, along with duct tape hanging from her face and neck. Quote, she was wearing a very, very short black latex dress, which appeared open in places. You could plainly see what she had been through. There were no tears. I honestly believe she was too dehydrated to produce them. Lisa continued on, quote, her face was bound and she had taken that off. She had some kind of collar device on. She told me that she was being held and that the person she was being held by lived up the street. How creepy would that be? That one of your neighbors is apparently holding this woman captive. Now, while Lisa was on the phone with 911, I guess TJ bolted to Lisa's next door neighbor's house, which happened to be the home of Sierra Tharp. Sierra was not there, but her grandmother was there watching her son. And Sierra said, quote, my grandma, opened the door and the girl ran up and said, you've got to help me. I've been held captive. I've been... the R word. It's really stupid. You can't even say that word. You've got to help me. He's going to end up killing me. Sierra's grandmother apparently led TJ into the house, let her stay there while authorities came and tried to console her. Sierra said, quote, she said she was very hungry and my grandma could tell she was weak. She didn't have a whole lot of clothes on. My grandma said that she had a metal collar around her neck pretty tight. It was restricting her breathing. She had ligature marks on her wrists. She could tell she was pretty weak. She brought her inside and gave her some food and wrapped a blanket around her. She was terrified. She said, if somebody doesn't let me in, he's going to find me and he's going to kill me. I mean, he was not that far away. He was within a couple of minutes away. She made the comment that He killed my friends. They didn't make it. He killed my friends. She just kept repeating it. TJ told them that she had escaped captivity from the basement of a local home. She said she had been held captive for approximately a month, and when she was helped by neighbors, we, just discussed, she was wearing a metal collar that was locked with a padlock, and paramedics had to later remove it because we mentioned it earlier, it was restricting her breathing like that badly, and they had to immediately, I think, get bolt cutters or something and cut it loose. She also had duct tape wrapped around her neck and was wearing what was described as latex lingerie. Other reports described it as a trash bag. Now, TJ said she managed to escape her captor's home, get this, after he left the home to take his young son to school. This freak predator has a son. She had then dashed out of the home, pounding on every neighbor's door, just looking for help. Police said when they arrived on scene, quote, "It was readily apparent that she had been held against her will for a significant period of time." And this was according to Lieutenant Ryan Dowdy of the Excelsior Springs Police. TJ told police that she'd been held captive by a, quote, "man named Timothy," who she said had picked her up on Prospect Avenue in early September. Prospect Avenue, apparently this whole street and area, block, whatever, is known for sex work. She said Timothy had held her captive ever since, bounding her up in his basement and repeatedly and regularly sexually assaulting her and beating her, including whipping her. Medical personnel did find wounds on her back consistent with lashings. And as she was being whisked away in the ambulance, she was able to point out the home that she had escaped from to investigators. Quote, "She was able to point out the house to us from the back of the ambulance on the way to the hospital." And this was according to Excelsior Springs Police Chief Gregory Dull. Now, the renter and occupier of the home TJ had escaped from was Timothy Marion Haslett Jr., who was 39 years old. He's originally from Vernon, Illinois, went to school in Patoka, Illinois, and in 2008, he left Vernon and moved to Kansas City, Missouri in 2010. Records indicate, though, that from 2011 to 2015, he lived in Independence Township, Illinois, and it is while he is here that he got married in 2013. In 2014, he and his then wife had a son, and in 2015, courts indicate that Timothy filed for divorce. He also maintained joint custody of their son and became the primary custodial parent. In 2017, he moved to the house in Excelsior Springs, and his son primarily resided with him, while his ex-wife was required to pay $400 a month in child support, and that is because their son only lived with her every other weekend and 1 day a week. Now, for years, Timothy worked as a railroad construction worker, working for M&H Contractors, which is a subcontractor in Kansas City that does railroad repair and maintenance work and stuff like that. Now, by June 2020, Timothy no longer worked there. We don't know what happened. Now, reports indicate that as TJ was being whisked away to the hospital, Timothy was on his way back from dropping off his son at school, and that is when authorities arrested him. Chief Dull said, quote, "We were able to keep him from getting back into the house and possibly destroying evidence." They took Timothy into custody on some unrelated, animal control violation charge or something, initially, and at the time of his arrest, he had active warrants out of Clay County, Cooper County, and Liberty, Missouri. And this was for various moving violations, but court documents listed him as, quote, "posing a danger to a crime victim, the community, or another person." Timothy is currently being held at the Clay County Detention Center on a $500,000 bond, and he is charged with first-degree kidnapping and second-degree assault. Now, Timothy seems to be a bit of a known racist. Apparently, he has made numerous racist social media posts in the past, primarily disparaging Black people. And it is said while he was in the military in the early 2000s, he frequently had run-ins with fellow Black soldiers. Now, all of his neighbors describe him as just kind of creepy, loner, kind of like a sketchy guy. One neighbor, Missy Hancock, described him as, quote, mountain manish. They said he wasn't really an outwardly friendly guy. I know Missy tried, introducing herself to him because, she was living in the neighborhood or whatever, and that he was just sort of yeah, what do you want? Not very friendly or welcoming. He had a drone that he would often play with. And she said that he would often be working on a vehicle in his front yard. And she said it was really weird that in the 3 years that she had lived there across the street from him, she never saw his garage door come fully open. It would only raise up for a few inches, and then he would roll out. And I'm guessing on one of those boards that, when you're working on the ground under a car, I'm guessing that's what she meant when he said that he would roll out and in. And she said that was always very strange to her. Another guy was a pizza delivery driver at one point. His mom also lived in the neighborhood, and kind of with the same thing with Missy, said that the guy was kind of weird, gave off an odd vibe. He said that when he delivered pizzas there, he always got a weird vibe from him, and just weird. But none of these neighbors, including Lisa, said that he never displayed any outward odd behavior, you know? He was just a loner who kind of kept to himself, and he just kind of gave off this creepy vibe, you know? Now, authorities immediately secured a search warrant to search Timothy's home, where they found a, quote, dungeon-like cell in the basement. It was painted black and equipped with several, quote, devices that he undoubtedly used to restrain TJ. Court filings indicate that Timothy had kept TJ locked in a, quote, small room in the basement that he had built. He kept her restrained in handcuffs on her wrists and ankles. In the warrant applications, authorities said that they were looking to seize a 10 by 10 by 16 inch safe from the home and its contents, any evidence related to illegal sexual acts, and felonious restraints, including rope, restraints, whips, handguns, other weapons. They also searched for trace evidence, including fingerprints, swabs for DNA, hair, fibers, apparent blood or bodily fluids, and any item with apparent blood or bodily fluids on it, along with surveillance video and any video or digital media storage or storage devices. Now, we mentioned this earlier. TJ has, continuously told the neighbors that she had 2 other friends who were also held captive by Timothy who didn't make it. She repeated the story to nurses at the hospital, doctors, and to authorities. Now, it says police have searched Timothy's home with cadaver dogs, but no other evidence that suggests bodies were there or had been there were found that they could find. Dowdy said, quote, "We have no further victims that we are aware of at this specific moment in time. She made mention of other victims, but there's no signs of them at this time that we have found." On October 11th, Judge Louis Angles entered a not guilty plea on behalf of Timothy, who said that he planned to apply for a public defender. I believe he may have one assigned to him now. I'm gonna look that up when he has his preliminary hearing. And that same day, Timothy entered a guilty plea for a separate case that was from August of 2021, and it involved careless and imprudent driving that resulted in an accident. And for that case, Timothy told the judge that the reason he hadn't made it to court, like he had numerous missed court appearances, was because he was out of town for work and had been hospitalized with an infection at one point. Now, in December of 2022, as Timothy was sitting behind bars, he wrote an 8-page letter to the family court judge, Marco Roldan, who was handling his custody case with his ex-wife. Now, Timothy's ex-wife was trying to suspend his visitation rights with his son. She had, of course, been granted emergency full custody of their son when Timothy had been arrested. Now, according to Timothy, he said his ex was just trying to cut him off from his son through a temporary restraining order and was trying to modify the custody agreement. He accused her of doing this only for monetary compensation, perhaps even a reduction in child support, and for, tax breaks. Now, apparently, the judge had granted his ex-wife's request for a temporary order of protection from Timothy. It had been granted immediately after his arrest in October, and I think it may have extended to his son as well. The judge had thought that his ex had brought forth enough evidence to substantiate her claims. Almost couldn't say that word, substantiate. Now, in the letter, which again was 8 pages, Timothy stated that his ex already had full custody of their son because he was in prison, that he was not a threat to anyone, let alone his own child, and that his current predicament, his current charges, should not play any role in the custody case. So part of his letter read, quote, "I'm currently being held on a $500,000 bond and have no intention of attempting to seek revocation or of posting said bond, as I have no assets to do so, and so not now or in the future will any third party do so on my behalf. And as my case has not even had its initial pretrial hearing yet, it is safe to say that I'm not going anywhere for a while. As to the nature of the allegations against me, while I understand the allegations are serious, they are nothing more than that. The state has not yet entered any facts onto the record against me, nor have I been allowed to enter any in my defense, which there are plenty of. I do not believe that allegations against me, which I have a constitutional right to the presumption of innocence of, meet the standard of a preponderance of evidence required to grant an order of protection. As to the nature of the claim itself, that they are a danger, referring to his wife and son, of course, or in any immediate risk of physical harm by me or anyone at my behest, I say that any such claim is spurious and not born from any specks of truth, and any claim otherwise is slanderous." He also stated that news reports presented a, quote, "one-sided narrative" against him. Now, Timothy's preliminary hearing is currently slated for February 24th, 2023, where a judge will determine if there's enough evidence to bring Timothy to trial. It was originally slated for December 2nd, 2022, but he was granted a continuance. Then for a while, there were no updates with this case. And then on January 11th, 2023, the Excelsior Springs, Missouri Police Department announced that they were looking for a potential witness in the case. They said investigators, in conjunction with the Clay County Investigative Squad, have identified 36-year-old Janie M. Crossdale as a potential witness in their case against Timothy. They said Janie's last known address is in Kansas City, but so far they have been unable to locate her, so they released her photo and name to the public, seeing if she would come forward. Quote, "We believe she has information about the investigation and ask her to contact us as soon as possible." And they have not elaborated how Janie could help them in the investigation, just that they were looking for her and she was a witness. Now, around the time TJ went missing, there were many local leaders and activists in the Black community in that area that were raising the alarm that there were an awful lot of Black women and girls that were going missing. Apparently, a good chunk were off of Prospect Avenue, where TJ was taken from. Remember, we said it was also known for sex work. Don't know if TJ is a sex worker, not that it really matters. I guess just to the extent to see if Timothy was targeting sex workers. But officials just dismissed their concerns and just made them act like they were just like clutching their pearls over nothing, you know? Quote, "There is no basis to support this rumor," and just, yeah, making it seem like they were just up in arms about nothing. And then the story broke. Bishop Caldwell was one of the first like community activists and leader to raise the alarm bell about this happening in this area. And she has done interviews where she talks about like this is a problem, like having these cases of missing Black women and girls taken seriously. Quote, "If that young lady would not have escaped, we wouldn't be talking today." She has talked about how Black people just aren't taken seriously by law enforcement, and that the reason why many of these Black women and girls are not reported missing is because of the seemingly, no fucks given attitude that the police department have displayed towards the community. So, after the story broke, of course, they were like, yeah, you're saying there's not a problem, and then this woman just escaped a basement. Like, is Timothy a serial killer? Like, we've been sounding the alarm bells that there are Black women and girls disappearing, and you guys weren't taking it seriously. And, like, I guess the police were responding like, oh, well, we don't have missing reports of these Black women and girls. How are we supposed to investigate when, we don't have reports? And, like, kind of like addressing that, Caldwell said, quote, "That's exactly what we were telling people. I'm sorry people didn't act on it sooner, and it's absolutely tragic that the other young ladies didn't make it. It's horrible. A lot of times we're even trying to give the police information so they can act on it because the people in the street don't trust them, and now we can see that's rightfully so." There have also been many, many Black families that have come forward and been like, the police are saying that these chicks aren't reported missing and whatnot. Well, I tried to report my, daughter, sister, niece, whatever, missing, and they didn't even take me seriously. So it's like, what are they supposed to do? What are they supposed to do? Huh? What are they supposed to do? Oh, well, we can investigate if you don't report them missing. Oh, well, okay, we're going to report them missing. Nah, they probably just ran away. Like, a lot of them are just dismissed as runaways, and it's ridiculous. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on this case because, I'm curious to know if this is Timothy's first rodeo. Because people like this, they don't just do this on a whim, right? So, has he done this before? Is TJ right? Did she have friends that were targeted and then subsequently killed by Timothy? Could he have disposed of their bodies in a different location? Was this his first time, and TJ, just has trauma, so her memories aren't exactly lined up yet? I tried finding out what was going on with her. All I could find was that she had been rushed to the hospital, and I hope she's getting the care and treatment that she needs. I hope if there's anything else in Timothy's closet, I really hope it comes out. The fact that he had a drone was really creepy when neighbors were saying that he always played with his drone. I would not be happy if someone had their drone in my yard. I'd be chucking rocks at it. It just has a bunch of things running in your mind, right? Was he using that to hunt? Again, is this his first time doing this? We don't know. Hopefully more information will be forthcoming. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on this preliminary hearing, and we'll see if there's enough evidence to bring Timothy to trial. And with that will do it for this week's Crime Dip. Thank you so much for joining me. Tell me, what do you think of these stories? Did anyone break your heart more than the others? I mean, they're all tragic, but man, the Angie Diaz one really broke my heart. Just coming here trying to start a new life and just taken because there's, a lot of people, a lot of men who just don't value women's lives, and it's awful. And the Karon Blake one just, God, dude, 13 years old. You gotta shoot a 13-year-old? Really? I don't care. I really don't care, man. I don't care if they said they had a gun. You're the adult. You have the gun. You have the power. Tell them I'm calling the cops. And yeah, I don't know, what caused him to fire his weapon, but man, there better be a damn good reason, Alrighty, guys, I will go ahead and let you go. Let me know if there's any cases that you are currently following. Probably gonna have some updates on some of these cases soon. We've got a few cases that are gonna be hopefully having some updates in February. I will see you all next Thursday. And if you just want more true crime, remember I do post on Tuesdays. Those are my more thorough deep dive looks into true crime cases. And with that, I will sign off. See you next week. Bye-bye.